It's still afternoon, maybe, is it? Yeah, thank you all so much for coming. We were a little bit worried that it might just be the two of us sitting on our own with the weather this morning. Yeah. Sue came up on the train, which left Edinburgh beautiful. Well, not
and then
sunshine,
suddenly
and then
at Montrose, the snow and the skies were just heavy with the snow. It was incredible.
We probably know you, or you're probably here today because of Masterchef. Do you think you would be here today if it wasn't because of Masterchef?
No, I don't think so. I mean, when Masterchef came, it was at a good time in a way because I won the second year of it in '91, and remember it was on the Sunday evening at 5 o'clock or whatever.
Yeah. Lloyd.
And yes, good old Lloyd. And on the Monday morning, I had a phone call from both a Scotsman and a publisher saying, we'd like you to write a book and we'd like you to write a series of 10 or 12 articles for the Scotsman. Because I was a trained journalist anyway, I was sort of vaguely knew how to string a sentence together, so that was really useful. So I would like to think I'd be writing, but I would never have had the sort of platform that obviously Masterchef gave me. So it was very, very wonderful thing to do. Yeah.
So what was your, I guess, early memories of food? Did you eat everything as a child? Were you a foodie?
No, because nobody was in Scotland.
You just ate what you were given.
You just ate what you were given. I remember the first time probably I was given a choice was when I met my husband, who's Southern English, not just English, Southern English, his parents. And the mum said, what would you like tomorrow for breakfast? And I thought, wow, I've never been asked that question before. That's amazing. And would you like blah, 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 blah for dinner? I thought, gosh, we call it tea in Scotland. And I've never been asked that question. You just, took whatever you were given and you ate it all. So I was definitely not a fussy child because, you had no chance to be a fussy child. I mean, certain houses you went to you'd go to friends' houses for tea, and some people's, one of my friends, in fact, the Doig, Mrs. Doig, we were talking about her cake recipe earlier, did a fantastic meat roll, or meat roll, I think we call it. And somebody else, the mum, did proper chips, really good chips with the dangerous wire chip pan. So, you could remember, but on the whole, I ate everything, still do. I love food, obviously, it doesn't show with me, but it's something that will never leave you, I think, if you're grown up just to eat everything. I think I brought my kids up like that. My middle daughter will, she keeps saying she doesn't like fish, and I keep saying, don't be ridiculous, of course you like fish. I mean, she's 32 now. So it's but no, I don't think we can be fussy. And early memories, I suppose it all comes as well with the atmosphere and the warmth of the kitchen. Warmth of the kitchen, if it was in summer and there was jam being made and there was the sort of lovely hot jammy smell, usually raspberries, sometimes blackcurrants, and that would be, it's very evocative even when I'm sort of speaking about it. And in winter, of course, it was always the soup. But the soup pan was there all year round, just before central heating. It just sort of sat there in the kitchen, didn't it? So it was simple stuff. It was the soups, it was the mince or steak pie at special occasions, and then something like a clootie dumpling as well. Again for the birthdays.
Yeah, that's again interesting. My husband's family, he never had a birthday cake. Mm-hmm. It was always a clootie dumpling.
Yes.
Whereas I've never had a...
Yes.
I remember my mum tried to make one once, and she did it in a tea towel, and it tasted of parasol. So
that's not good.
So clearly,
that's not good. No.
So I think that was her one attempt at a clootie dumpling.
Yes, yeah. Well, both my mum and dad were from Dundee, very generations back, and Dundee is very much, and I think Aberdeenshire as well, very much clootie dumpling domain. But actually, I made one recently and realised it's quite difficult to find because my mum's clute had sort of died. To find a large enough cloth, okay. I actually went on to, dare I say, Amazon and just googled in huge, large cotton tea towels. You need cotton. And it was quite difficult to get. They were quite expensive, but I bought them, and so now I'm all set. It'll see me out.
It's not something I have ever attempted. I should maybe make it mine.
It's not. It really isn't difficult.
Right. Okay. Clootie dumpling.
Yes.
So obviously your childhood Dundee.
No, born in Dundee, but I was actually brought up in Edinburgh. Mum and Dad moved to Edinburgh when I was just about 9 months. Yeah, so
okay.
a school in Edinburgh.
School in Edinburgh.
Chose to come back to Dundee University. Yeah.
So what did you want to be at school? What did you want to be?
I actually wanted to be a nun until my mum reminded me that, sorry, we're not Catholics. It was all about the sound of music. I wanted to wear the wimple. Always wanted to wear the wimple. And then I realised that wasn't ever going to happen. And so then I wanted to be a social worker, and that's kind of why I chose to do. It was a general degree in first year at Dundee University, sort of sociology, psychology, etc. But then within about 2 days, I realised that I absolutely loved languages, and so I specialised in French. I went on to do MA in French, and because of that, I then went to France often as an au pair, as a year out of university, and the love of food I realised was just innate in me, because I've just always loved eating. Sort of emerged, because you're at a French market, you don't sort of stand like this, you stand like that, prodding and tasting and smelling things. And so I realised there was much more to cooking and to eating, because in Scotland, of course, you've had your tea. How was it? It was fine, and that's a real compliment, isn't it? Fine. Whereas in France, they would talk for ages about a certain aubergine dish, or luckily I was at au pair in Provence, and there were some gorgeous vegetable dishes and all sorts of lovely gratins, and they would just go on and on and on about it, and talk at lunchtime about what they were having for dinner, which again we never did, because as I say, it was just there. So I love
you
that.
wouldn't have been asked what.
No.
I mean, that's even now.
Yes,
my kids
no.
would. Yeah. Whereas no, I don't. I can't actually recall even asking my mum.
No.
Can you make such and such for dinner? Because no, it would be coming whatever it was. So after you've also been in France, and then journalism.
Yes. So after university, I lived for a year in Finland, in the very north, where Sweden and Finland meet, just below the Arctic Circle, and that was fascinating as well, because on about day 3. A couple of my new friends in Finland, I was teaching at a timber company, but also sometimes in the school, sometimes in a bank, bizarrely. And they said, would you like to come out to the forest? And I went, yeah, that's fine, thinking it was just for a walk. But of course it was autumn, it was early October. And so that was the start of realising what foraging was about. And now,
before it was
trendy. And, in Scotland, of course, some of the chefs would have done it, but I had no idea that's where you went to get your wild mushrooms and all the wild berries, lingonberries, cloudberries, etc. And they got loads, and everybody did it in north of Finland where I lived. It was just what everybody did in the autumn. So that really opened my eyes to that. So that was an amazing year. I loved that year, and then came back and decided to go into journalism, join good old DC Thomson in Dundee, and was there for a couple of years. And loved it. I would have stayed there, but then my husband was in the RAF at the time, and we were immediately posted to Germany.
So what were you writing for DC Thomson?
I was writing... No, I was My Weekly, the magazine.
Oh, gosh.
And my first job was making up the horoscopes.
Making it up?
It's being filmed, isn't it? Sorry if I've ruined anyone's life. Yeah, you did. You just made it up. And because I'm a Libran. Libran always had a really good...
I'm Libra as well, but I'm on the cusp of Scorpio. And some magazines I would be one, so I would obviously read both and pick which kind of...
Pick the nicer one, yeah.
Oh, gosh. Problem page, you didn't do that?
Didn't do the problem page, no.
Okay.
No. Our main job was we were sub-editors, so we were editing the copy that came in. So it was good sort of basic training in journalism. Yeah. And do you think, did that give you a grounding for writing novels, cookery writing, or... In that, you have to be very disciplined, because, you'd only have a certain deadlines.
Yeah.
And then when I started getting columns for, the Sunday Times, Scotland on Sunday and all the rest of it, you have to submit your copy by, say, the Monday morning or whatever at 10 o'clock. And so you'd get into the discipline of, knowing that I would always do it by the Friday and then check it over first thing Monday morning and send it. And that was very useful.
That's very good.
Yes. Yeah.
You must have been a very good student at university.
Yeah, I was a bit swotty, actually.
Oh, gosh. No, I would have been the one up at 5 in the morning with something to submit for 9 o'clock that morning. I don't have that. I don't have that discipline.
Yeah.
So were you working as a journalist when Masterchef came along? Or?
No, because when Masterchef came along in 1991, I had 3 small children, and I was doing bits and pieces of French teaching, say I was doing some in the local primary school actually, and when we were living in Germany I was doing some there as well. And I think my youngest was only 2.5, and then say 4-ish and 7, obviously that way. And so when somebody suggested that...
how did you hear about it? What were you with? You were the second
year, yes.
And had you watched it the first year?
Yes, and I thought, oh, that looks quite fun. And it wasn't such a big deal in a way.
But did you host dinner parties? Did you?
Yes, but I always just, as I say, loved cooking. I liked looking at all the magazines because they were all just coming out, if you think about it, in the late 80s, 90s were the start of all those foodie magazines. Before that, we didn't really have such things. And the cookery books, if you now look back, even when I look back to my early cookbooks, they're so, the photographs are shocking, and they're quite sort of, stylized, whereas now they're far more relaxed.
My mum, I remember, she was the cordon bleu cookery course, and it was a part work.
Yes.
And that's what, if she was having a dinner party, she would get that out. Yes. And there was another one, the Reader's Digest, the cookery year.
Oh,
that was another.
That's
and
right.
there was one, there was a spread in there of a birthday party, and that would have just been my ideal birthday party.
I think that's probably when the aspirational cooking started.
Yeah.
Because before that,
it was like a little tiny A5 food magazine, I remember.
I don't remember that.
But I think that was before your whole Good Foods and Delicious and all that kind of thing. Yes.
So I always just loved, trying different things out, and so I just literally thought, why not? I'll give it a go. And because my children were so young, I actually thought, it'd be quite nice to go down to London and have a couple of days away from the chaos in the house. So that was literally behind it, thinking, why not?
So you actually filled in an application?
Yes, did all that, and the first rounds, I've no idea what happens now, but the first round is in a local college, so the Scottish ones all came to Edinburgh, which was handy. And I found that very challenging because it was in a proper sort of chef kitchen, which, I wasn't used to at all, and so I found that very, very challenging, as opposed to the television rounds. You remember it with those 3 kitchens, and that was a domestic kitchen, so it was much, much easier actually in the studio to me. And somebody coming up with a camera or chatting to you, Lloyd Grossman would breeze up with whoever and chat with the microphone. That actually didn't faze me because I was used to being interrupted all the time with my 3 small children. But I couldn't say go away. I'd have to sort of smile and carry on. But so that didn't faze me much, really.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what did you make, or what was your signature dishes, or what?
Nothing sort of signature. The final one was, I always tried to do something Scottish, but then because, between semi-final and final, I had to stay down there. And so I had to go to London Butchers, so I couldn't get, obviously, Scottish lamb, which is what I did for my main course with, I made pasta, but I made it into a rosti, which is usually made with potatoes, and the pudding and a smoked salmon, kind of like a blinny, but more like a Scotch pancake to start with. Really quite simple things, but then it was quite, there's a Scotch pancake used for smoked salmon. It was a little bit different. And then the pudding was a chocolate marquise, very bitter, with cloudberries from my time in Finland, which, I brought over and had in my freezer. And Alba Roo was my judge there, happened to love cloudberries, so I think that's the only reason I won. I'm sure it was.
Did it come as a surprise to you?
Yes, absolutely. I was positive that a girl called Jo was going to win it. Yeah.
So do you still have your trophy?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Where
yes.
is it?
It's just sort of there. It's not there. It's just kind of there. It's nowhere very important. Yeah.
Would you enter now?
No, definitely not. No,
it's
so changed.
Yeah.
The fact they go into professional kitchens, that wasn't the kind of ethos behind it. It was for amateur chefs. It was all called amateur chefs, not cooks, but to me it was more, because I would never call myself a chef, I'm a cook. And that was correct at the time. Now it's, gearing up to be a proper chef, which is just very different. I would hate that, actually. Yeah.
Do you still watch it?
Oh, yes. Yes.
Yeah. All of them, the professionals, that's on at the moment.
Yes. I think the celebrity one is hilarious, because they've obviously just want people because they're celebrities, as opposed to because they can cook anything. It's fun.
You could go back, you could be on the celebrity
one.
No,
I don't think I would want to. No.
So, after that, is that when things sort of changed? did you get offers? Did you have to go out and look for?
No, that's what I was saying. On the Monday morning,
yeah,
immediately I had the phone calls. I have no idea if that happens now, but it was amazing. And so I started writing with the Scotsman, got my first book contract, and from then on it was almost a book a year. And then magazines came into the mix, and then Sunday Times, and just sort of went on. And I started loving it. And it was great at the time because my children were small. I was still able to work between, say, 9 and 3 or whatever time they were at school. And in fact, the little one would just be half day. So it was really handy because my husband, being a pilot, was away a lot, and so I was able to really slot everything in. Yeah.
So how did you go from? I mean, obviously you've cooked and you put your own twist on things for Masterchef.
Yeah.
But all of a sudden, how do you write a cookbook?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's. I mean, any sort of recipe, it's all about the seasonal stuff, and you'd like to see everything is local. But of course, then people are travelling a lot, and so, and again, if you think about it, maybe from the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, people really were travelling, and so they'd come back from not just Spain or France, they'd come back from, I don't know, say Mexico, and they want something amazing from there. So, I did lots of research into what they ate in different countries. We were very lucky in 91, actually. Spent 4 months living in Sydney with my husband's job, and that was amazing because even then, I think Australia and I'd say New Zealand were not like 12 hours or let's say a day behind us. They were always ahead, both in time and also vision, because they didn't have the sort of constraints of French classical cuisine, let's say, that a lot of the chefs at that time had. So they were very easygoing in things, and so I love that attitude. So I got a lot of inspiration from them because they were used, of course, and being so near Asia, they used a lot of Asian flavours as well, but with local ingredients. And that's at the time that here there was the sort of the mix, our fantastic Scottish produce, but with, let's say, not more interesting flavours, just different flavours. Mm-hmm. And then during the 90s, it got a little bit crazy. Sometimes you'd have a risotto with lemongrass and ginger, and I don't know, it's just something that just you knew it didn't work and it wasn't right. But
I guess that's when the whole sort of celebrity chef
and the nouvelle
TV
cuisine thing came in. And but now I think it's settled down, and I think it's got back to using our fantastic local ingredients, best produce in the world, I would say, but with flavours that will work with it. Yeah.
And of the cookery books that you've written, which are you most proud of? Are there any now that you look back? I know you were saying maybe some of the first ones.
Yes.
You look back and think, oh, goodness.
Yes, not so much. Yeah, no, absolutely. Mainly the way they're sort of, the style and the photographs and all the rest of it. A lot of the recipes, I think, oh gosh, I haven't made that for ages. I must do that again. One of my favourite was Cook's Tour of Scotland, which of course they've let go out of print, annoyingly. That was the one that I went round most of Scotland speaking to producers and cooks and chefs and getting ideas for recipes and actual very old recipes. I did a lot of research for the traditions, and because that went out of print, my 17th cookbook I'm working on now is Cook's Tour of the Scottish Islands, so I'm going around the islands. I've only done Razzie and Skye at the moment because this weather isn't exactly conducive, because I just got the contract about 3 months ago. So from the spring on, I'm all over the islands, but not so much just the big islands that we all know about. I want to go to the little ones. That's why I was on Razzie near Skye, as well as Skye, and I'm going to the Fair Isle as well as Shetland and Orkney, and the Outskerries, and some of the much smaller ones, and just speaking to people about the traditions and also what they're doing now.
Okay,
loving it.
So from that point of view, is that how does it work? Do you come up with an idea for a cookbook, or does your publisher say, we want you to write this, or is it like that you work together?
It really depends. It sort of should be a symbiotic relationship. The little soup Bible and berries Bibles, that always comes from the publisher. They'll say, we want one on soups, and we think you might be the person. I went, fantastic. They also offered me another ingredient, and I went, that's really not my thing. That's fine, we'll take it to somebody else. And berries, which is lovely. So sometimes it comes that way. This one I'm working on now, the Cook's Tour of the Islands, I've been going on and on to my publisher for ages about it, and
So
eventually...
this is a passion of yours.
Yes, and eventually he sort of gave in and went, yep, okay, I can see this is going to work, that's going to be lovely. So it just really depends who it comes from. Yeah.
So how do you go about, like if you're putting together, say, the soup one?
Yes.
You just think, right, okay, I'm going to make 40 soups, or I'm going to...
Yes. I mean, it's called the Scottish Soup Bible, so it's, I had to do a lot of the traditional ones, you know, the cockaliki, the cullen skink, the Scotch broth, etc. By the way, we were talking about cockaliki. Did anyone see Mary Berry last night? Yes. And there was a cockaliki. And did you notice the ingredient that should never be in it? Carrots. No carrots in it. I'm shouting at the television, Mary, Mary, we love you, Mary, but no, never carrots in a cockaliki soup. Anyway, and then I calmed down and I thought, okay, it's fine. So a lot of the traditional ones, but then...
I guess that's the whole thing with, I guess, a lot of the traditional ones. Everybody's got their own way of making Scotch broth. Everybody's got their own way of making stovies or mince and tatties or dough balls or...
Well, cullen skink, you know, classically was with the finnan haddock, which of course is the cold smoked haddock with the, you know, the bone left into one side. But of course nowadays I have to order a finnan haddock, but of course all my fishmongers always got smoked haddock fillets in. And so 9 times out of 10 you make it with the smoked haddock fillet, and it's much easier because then you just chop them up and that's it there. But, you know, so sometimes you think, actually, what's going to be easier? However, quite recently I was doing some radio for Kitchen Cafe on Scotch broth, and I always do the marrowfat peas, soak them overnight, and the barley.
I love the barley, but I would pick the peas out of my broth.
No, I don't love the peas, love the peas. But I also brought, for the radio, so I could chat about it with Neil Forbes, who also does it, a broth mix. And I thought, yeah, that'll be fine. Until I looked at the ingredients. Of course, there's barley. There's split peas, that's fine. There's lentils, shouldn't really be in there. And there's dried vegetables, there's dried cabbage, there's dried onions and dried carrots.
That swells.
Yes, why on earth would you do that? You know, it was only because I had to get my glasses on to look. I thought, I cannot believe that people are using dried vegetables when we've got all these, and dried cabbage. But I like kale in it because, of course, my mum used to always just call it kale. It was never called broth, it was just called kale. And I think, really... I know we like shortcuts, but how quick would it be to chop an onion or to chop up a bit of cabbage or something?
Yeah, I guess we are all slightly about convenience and busy lives and stuff like that.
Yeah, but I mean, things like baking, you know, people say, I love baking, but I don't have time to bake. I just always say a scone takes literally 3 minutes to make, 10 minutes in the oven. Flapjacks, again, 3 minutes to mix, 18 to 20 minutes in the oven. You know, you couldn't even get to Tesco for that. And it is, you know, I think everyone, if they wish to, and then if you do a big batch, then freeze it. I'm a great one for using the freezer as my best friend. Definitely.
So what about Scottish food? I mean, we're obviously saying now Scotland's got an amazing lard, all this. I mean, we did, I don't know if we're still, are we past the whole deep fried pizza, Mars bar kind of...
I had to actually have the deep fried Mars bar supper. Have any of you had it, by the way? Just for research purposes. Exactly, for research. I had to actually write about it for the Sunday Times. And I think, embarrassingly, I think it was when my kids were still at school, and it was the night before. You know, when does this happen in your children's school class? The teacher says, so what did you have for school last night, Ewan? I thought, why would it be last night of all nights? Could it not be the night before when we had a good, you know, sort of stew or something, for goodness sake? But it was just, it really puts you out when you go in, because of course you see them unfurling it from its wrapper, and then putting it in the fish batter, and then deep frying it, and then you're completely flummoxed, because then they go, salt, sauce and vinegar. And you go, oh, I don't know. Am I meant to have that?
That's the Edinburgh thing, the whole
the whole lot.
This confused me.
What happens in Aberdeenshire?
Salt and vinegar?
Is it just salt and vinegar? So no
None
sauce?
Of this sauce.
Yeah, it's always salt,
and the
sauce,
sauce
vinegar.
is kind of like a watered down vinegary brown.
Brown. It's like HP sauce, but not nearly as nice. I love HP sauce. No, it's just...
Oh, no, I don't know.
So the whole thing was just weird. But I just almost laughed through it, because I just thought, this is ridiculous, and it was so cheap. That was the other awful thing. Much cheaper than a fish supper.
Yeah.
So I thought we had got past that until this morning, when I saw there's still somewhere in Edinburgh you can buy them.
But then I think in all cultures, there's maybe, I mean, I know from we were on holiday in Italy, and there's like Nutella pizza and pizza topped with chips, and
I know.
So I think there's always going to be stupid foods or controversial foods.
Yes.
But I don't know. Do you think as a nation are we getting back to? Are we cooking more at home? Are kids at school learning how to cook?
Well, there should be more kids at school learning, because a lot of them, they don't see much cooking at home because, both parents out at work, and, it's all crazy busy. So there should be definitely more, more people taught to cook, most definitely, across the spectrum, not just kids, just, everybody. And I think just better, in hospitals, if you're visiting somebody, and you think, oh gosh, all you want is thinking, oh, it'll be food time soon, and you think that's awful, whatever it is. We go out to eat more. There's a lot more restaurant eating, which we never used to do. We were just talking about high tea. That's the only thing I ever did as a child. We go out for high tea, and that's great, and people love it, and they talk about it a lot. But I'd like to think people are cooking more at home, but I don't know. I don't think we've quite got there yet.
No, I know. It seems as if it seems to come around every so often, this push, and I'm not sure if we are actually getting there. And the whole school dinners things, and that sort of thing. I mean, did you enjoy school dinners?
Yeah, I love the puddings, with that chocolate custard and the pink custard. I
never liked
a square of steamed pudding, depending on what colour the square. What was a square of steamed pudding was? You got a different colour of custard.
I like the semolina and then the squeezy jam on top.
Oh yes, I love semolina. I did love it all. There's nothing I didn't like. My sister hated haggis at school. I loved that even.
I don't remember getting haggis at school.
Yeah.
Food heaven and food hell. If you're on Saturday Kitchen, what would be your...
Very difficult to think, because as there was very little, I would say yuck. I actually hate that. Food heaven, well, anything sort of seafoody, and yet I love lamb, I love beef as well. I love chocolate, something home baked, a good soup, pasta I love. There's a lot of things I really love. What do I hate? Very few things I think I actually hate. I mean, if somebody suggested something, I might go, I wouldn't order that in a restaurant. It's actually really odd, and my children always notice this if we're out in a restaurant. They go, "You don't like pork, Mum?" I go, I don't mind pork, but unless you get amazingly delicious pork, it's kind of a bit tasteless. And because in Scotland, we were never that big, apart from in Ayrshire. Probably Aberdeenshire, again, is different. Ayrshire was very big on pork, obviously Ayrshire bacon and everything. But, pig products I absolutely love, but actual pork, that's my least favourite roast, let's say. Okay. Always go for chicken, lamb or beef.
So I would go with that, but I would just crackling.
My husband loves that, yeah. Oh, I know what I hate. I've just thought, you reminded me of my husband. Every Christmas we have these arguments, because I loathe bread sauce.
Oh, I loathe bread sauce. I'm with you on that one.
But I don't know whether that's an English thing.
I love it.
Oh, really? Okay.
I don't see the point of it.
I don't see the point. It's it's milk, it's cloves, it's an onion,
it's a very
bread,
strange
it's a bay
combination. A very strange.
Why would you? I know it's got medieval sort of antecedents.
I actually refuse to make it, and I'll go and buy it from Marky's because they want it. Yes. Definitely not.
Yeah. Well, then my husband says, no, but I'll make it then. I go, I'll make it. It's fine. There's no mess. I'll just get on and do it anyway.
But it was interesting because I'd something that I'd asked on my Facebook page. I was asking people what was a food of your childhood that you would never want to eat again, and a lot of it was the milk puddings.
Yes.
I liked milk pudding, but it was the skin on the milk puddings.
Yeah, but you just push it aside if you don't like it.
Didn't like that. Lots of people tripe, but that's not something that I ever really...
You hardly ever see that now. Yeah. And yet tripe, I remember when I went to France, to Normandy, 1 year to a university there for about a month or so, and they had tripe à la mode de Caen, so tripe Caen style, Caen, the town in Normandy. And it was absolutely gorgeous. And of course, if you didn't know what it was just this lovely tomatoey, carroty, vegetable-y sauce with this tripe, which of course the French cooked beautifully. And in Spain, I remember having it in a tapas bar, and it was delicious.
I've had it, and again, you do see it in the market in Barcelona, and that you see it everywhere. And again, there was one, I think it was in Florence, we went to a market, and a very famous stall that sold tripe, and there's queues and queues and queues of people, and really, really cheap. You got this it was as if it was a sort of tripe stew, and it was served in buns, and you got a carafe of red wine, and this was like, I think 4 of us had this for like €8 or something.
Yes.
It was just ridiculously cheap. But I don't know, we've maybe not got. There's maybe somebody doing something out in the islands with tripe and things.
I'll let you know.
Yeah. So, novel. Does everyone have a novel in them? Have you always had a novel in you?
I don't know. Everyone likes to think they do, and I certainly had no illusion that it would be, I never thought it would be easy, but I had no idea how difficult it actually is to write fiction.
So did you always you're obviously writing your cookbooks and whatever, at the back of your mind, when did you think?
It was only probably about, 7-8ish years ago, I started fiddling, and the other book, not just this one, The Night He Left, is my second novel published. The other one is the first one published is there, but I wrote 2 novels before these 2, which have never been published, and I'm very glad they haven't, because it wouldn't have been right. They weren't good enough. And yet you invest such a lot of time and energy. I mean, writing a novel takes at least 2 years, and then there's the long editing process, all the research. Whereas a cookery book, this islands one's a lot of travelling, so it'll take me a year. But otherwise, it can be done in 6 months. So it's really a journey, to use that ridiculous.
So it's a completely different process.
Totally different process, yeah.
So how did you approach it? You were obviously saying you've got 2 that never will see the light of day, or might you go back and work?
I might eventually, yes. Yeah.
So do you go to your cookbook publisher, or did you
go to well, because I've always had an agent for my cookery books, so she then took them, but she was sort of with me all the way, reading it, suggesting. But then I also went to Edinburgh University creative writing classes. I went to Moniac Moor, which is a creative writing centre up near Inverness, and did a couple of courses there actually with tutors who sort of give you feedback, and it was so incredibly useful. And there's so many things to think about. Obviously, it's the research, especially for something like this, which is very historical as well. But also you've got your characters, you've got your plot, and you've got dialogue. And dialogue is very difficult because we think we write our sentence. We sat in front of the microphone and did this. Nobody writes that, nobody says that. So you've always got to also observe and listen to what people are saying. And again, that's totally different, because writing a recipe book, maybe I would be sort of, out in a restaurant and eating something and going, an idea for a recipe has just come into my head. That would happen. But even more so for fiction. You're in the bus and you listen to somebody say something incredible, thinking, wow, I must remember what they've just said, either what they've said or how they've said it, which is quite unusual. You want to get that sort of nuance of meaning in it. So it is. It's absolutely huge, massive.
And did you get more of a buzz from seeing your first novel published in your cookery books? Was that
seeing the first cookery book published was amazing, absolutely fantastic. But I suppose seeing the first novel there that was very exciting. Yeah, and then you see the reviews come in, and you're kind of going, "Oh, I hope that's okay." And they've both been well received, so that's big phew.
Yeah, that must be different, because I guess you maybe don't get cookery books reviewed in the same
not as much
critical
no exactly
way.
Yes. Mm-hmm. All you want in a cookery book is for them to say the recipes work, and that's fantastic. Yeah.
Did you want to read us a little bit, and then we'll have a wee chat?
This is The Night He Left. It takes place in Dundee. Hopefully many of you are very familiar with Dundee because of the train and everything. So it's 1879, and a woman is standing up at her window, one of the big houses overlooking the bridge.
Now, I wanted to ask you, I've read the book. The big house that you mentioned, is it a real house?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
And I was going to see it now.
I was doing an event
across the bridge.
Yes. And I was doing an event yesterday in Dundee, and somebody said, "Do the people who live in that house know?" And I thought, is this a trick question? Are you that person? And I went, I'm not sure, actually. But somebody knows somebody who's in that house. Obviously, everything has changed about it. The number on the street, etc., etc. But I had to have a specific house which overlooks the river and you can see the very end where the train went in. Because so this is the Tay Rail Bridge disaster, because when I did all my research, a lot of the archive material was from that area, people looking over, where you could see it actually going down. So this woman is in this, obviously, Victorian house, overlooking, and she's with her 2 children, waiting for Daddy to come home. The storm raged on. In the pitch black, the thunder cracked as a roaring gale whipped through the narrow winds and filthy closes of Dundee's tenements. The wind ripped trees from their roots as it continued east, howling round the dingy buildings as slates and chimney pots crashed to the ground. Roofs from the bathing huts along the shore flew off as the wind rushed along the River Tay. The deep, tormented waters heaved upwards and crashed into foam-crested waves. Above the maelstrom on the river, and far from the squalid homes of the poor, a large stone house was feeling the blast. Though neighbouring houses were Gothic in style, this was classical, with pediment and pillars. The wind battered against the windows, rattling the casements. A flash of lightning forked through the bleak sky as a figure appeared upstairs at a window. The woman pulled the curtains open and placed the lamp on the table behind her. She beckoned to the children by the fire, their eyes wide with terror. "Come over here, my dears, there's nothing to fear. The storm sounds dreadful, but it's simply the noise of the wind." As she spoke, there was a crash as a slate smashed onto the cobbled path beneath. She took a deep breath and put her arms round her son and daughter, who'd scuttled over to join her. "Will the train blow over in the big wind, Mamma?" "No, Lizzie, it will not. Papa shall be here as usual for bedtime." They gazed out through the whirling wind at the heaving waters beyond. The full moon was obscured by dark, scudding clouds. "There, see, lights," said James, pointing across the river towards Fife. Anne turned to check the long case clock behind the lamp. It was nearly 7:15. "It's a little late. I do hope it won't speed." She watched the lights of the train as it rounded the curve at Wormit and straightened up onto the bridge. "It's past the signal box now," Anne whispered. "Papa says it must slow down over the bridge." As they watched the train continue at full speed, Anne clenched her hands tightly together. The train entered the high girders and she held her breath. "Look, more lightning, Mamma," Lizzie cried, cowering into her mother, whose mouth opened wide. For Anne saw not lightning, but a brilliant sheet of flame from the iron girders and a comet-like burst of fiery sparks from the engine. In one long trail, the streak of lights and fire plummeted downwards, and then nothing. All was dark on the river. There was a sudden hush in the room, while the rain continued to pelt against the window and the wind howled and swirled. "Stay here," said Anne, coming to her senses. "Don't move, I'll fetch Mrs. Baxter." She fled from the room and ran downstairs to the kitchen, flinging open the door. "Go and sit with the children. I must go out at once. I fear the train is over the bridge."
So have you always had a fascination with the Tay Bridge disaster, or?
With anything to do with Dundee, because I'm a Dundonian. But I think it was in 2013. There was 2 memorials put up. I don't know if any of you have seen them. One on Riverside Drive, Dundee. One on the other side of Newport. 3, I can't remember, any big granite slabs with the names of the 59 people who were found. There was far more people on the train.
That was fascinating when I was reading that.
Exactly.
Because they didn't know how many people
They had no idea how many were on the train. There could have been more because it was a Sunday evening and staff were allowed to travel free. But they had the 59 names. And so when I started reading about that, I thought, that is absolutely fascinating. I can't remember any fiction about it. There was obviously John Preble's brilliant book, High Girders, which, I obviously had a read of that. But I couldn't remember any fiction. And just having lived in Dundee for such a long time, whenever you see the bridge, you're very much aware of the new Tay Rail Bridge, which was actually erected only about 8 years after the accident. But underneath, at the far end, there's still the piers from the original bridge. And a lot of people used to say that was like tombstones to the dead. So I was always, fascinated by it. But with this new memorial, I started looking into what actually happened. And then I was very lucky. I went to the National Library and George Forth Bridge. white gloves on, and looked at all the old archive material, the newspapers the day after, because the Tay Rail Bridge at the time was the longest railway bridge in the world, and so it was huge, and it was Dundee's pride. And then suddenly, for this to happen, I mean, the Emperor of Brazil had visited it. Queen Victoria had been over it 6 months before it then crashed into the water. It was absolutely massive, and Dundee wasn't that big a city in those days. Jute had obviously increased the population of Dundee, in fact, threefold in the second half of the 19th century, but it still wasn't that big. And so everybody knew somebody who was on that train. It affected every single person in Dundee. So it was absolutely massive at the time. So that part of the research was enormous. I also had to research a lot about the jute industry. And whaling, there's a lot of that in it as well. And they've got
the other bit which you actually mentioned there, bathing huts.
Yes, bathing huts all along the River Tay. Yes, and they would have, because now there's always just those massive, a big stone wall. But before that, there was a little sort of, I presume, gravel sort of beach. People would have gone to the bathing huts. Victorian days, with the long swimming costumes and gone
like
for a bathe.
Picture postcards.
Yes.
Victorian stripy outfits.
Yes. Yeah.
No. And obviously your storytelling technique within the book is intertwining a modern day story with history, but set in the same location years apart. Is that, how did you come up with that as the way of telling the story, or? Yeah,
again, the first novel published, Fields of Blue Flax, is the same. It's dual narrative, so it's a now story, this one 2015, 16, and obviously 1879. And I found it a very useful device because the main character in the contemporary story is actually, what do you know, an archivist. And they're doing work on the Tay Rail Bridge disaster. So in 1879, the only way that Anne could find out anything was to go to the Tay Rail Bridge that night and find out with all the clamouring that was going on, and then send her man to the harbour where they were sending a boat out to see if anyone could be rescued. The only way was to actually physically go there. And so as a novelist, you have to sort of be, the point of view has to be with one person. My one person is Anne. And so there was no way she could have known anything. She couldn't sort of get on the phone to her neighbour and go, yeah, what's happening? Have you heard the news? Everything was very slow. And so it was a very useful device that I have somebody in the contemporary story who could actually say, so she and her friend were the archivists, and they were looking at the post-mortems and about the people who had died and when the bodies were found, etc. And so that could be sort of...
you move the story on...
Move the story on kind of, let's say, organically, naturally, rather than
I must admit,
a bit jerky.
When I was reading it...
Yes.
I sometimes skipped a chapter because I wanted to see what was happening to one of the because it was chapter about.
Yes, exactly.
I did go back and read the one in between, but
no, a lot of people have said that because a lot of people said it's a page turner. So much so we wanted to carry on with one story and then go back. Yes.
Yeah. I can't remember which particular bit that I was at, but there was one bit, and I was like, oh, but I want to kind of find out what happens with this story.
Yes.
So so that you've obviously you've finished writing a third novel?
The third novel is done.
Similar and historical?
It is, yes, it's two timelines again. I have to stop this. I have to stop, but that'll be three.
Your trademark.
With the dual timelines. I mean, I loved books by, I think Kate Atkinson did it as well. Maggie O'Farrell's certainly done different timelines. And Kate Mosse, M-O-S-S-E, that one, plays around with timelines as well. And I just love that. I love because I've always loved history and the research into old stories, but I also liked weaving in a contemporary story. So it just kind of worked for me. Yeah.
Okay. So your third novel, can you tell us a little bit?
Yes, I'm leaving, because the first one's about Angus, and then it's Dundee. So I'm leaving the north, and I'm going to where I live. And it's New Haven, which is one of the little fishing villages in Edinburgh. Now in Edinburgh, was out of Edinburgh. And it's about, but obviously very relevant to Aberdeenshire, the herring lassies. And so that's the sort of old story. And the new one, and again it all comes together in a house, because this is all about the one house. And the now house is actually a care home. because so many of us have, relatives in care homes, and I think apart from, say, Maggie Farrell, The Vanishing Act of Esme Lennox, which, takes place the last chapter in a care home, very little else, apart from Elizabeth is missing as well, there's allusions to it, very little has been written fiction-wise in a care home. And I just thought that might be quite interesting to bring in. My mum's in a care home, and so whenever I'd go in...
the staff will all be...
Oh, the staff! The lovely admin lady will say, she's quite large of girth, and she would say, now, have you made me into that tall Swedish woman with the long legs? Yes, Margaret. I think she's going to be a wee bit disappointed when she reads it, but yeah.
And what about writing? There are some scenes in the summer house.
In the summer house,
yeah. I
don't go too far.
Risky.
I know, but they're not though. They're not though,
no,
are they?
No.
Was
it a challenge to write?
Yes. But I mean, thinking of that, I wouldn't ever go, further than say my children or my mother. You say, oh, for goodness' sake, I never go that far. No.
So we're not going to get 50 Shades of
Dundee.
Dundee.
No, heavens, no, definitely not. No.
Right, well, I think that's probably us maybe covered what you wanted us to cover. I don't know, do people here have questions, or do you have some?
Hopefully you do.
No, hopefully.
Yeah. Yes.
Kirsty Work said at a book festival that when she was writing the novel,
which was lovely. I loved her novel.
I think it's set in Ireland.
Yes, Elizabeth Pringle, yeah. The Legacy of Elizabeth, yeah.
Stuck. But she said it was a nightmare, and she became unlivable with it.
Yes.
And she was doing television, and she was coming home, and she was having to find time, and publishers were phoning her. Do you have that problem, or can you isolate the thing very?
I know exactly what Kirsty means, because life kind of gets in the way, because you need... That's why I loved going up to this creative writing centre, and I'm always an early riser, and I would be up before anybody else, have a quick, walk up the hill, and then I'd be, quick breakfast, and then I'd be sitting there by 8 o'clock. Everyone else kind of wandered down, chatted, coffees, but I was there early, and working away till... I'd sort of say to everybody, sorry, obviously I'll have dinner together, we're all meant to eat together, I'm going to take my lunch to my room, that's because
so
I'm in the zone, but also that doesn't ever happen in my house. So I love isolation of going somewhere like that. Otherwise, if I'm really, more fiction than anything else, I would put my phone off and, not check the Twitter
social
or anything.
media,
I would just... But I totally understand what Kirsty was saying, because, it's the time to do it. I know she did a lot of her writing on the train, because, that's where she would have the silence, and people, wouldn't sort of be bothering her with things. So it is really quite challenging. I mean, I kind of admire these people who just say, I'm off to my garden shed. I'll be sometime, I'm off writing. Fantastic, but I suppose maybe as certainly as a mum, I just couldn't have done that. But now, I suppose I can do it. But again, so much gets in the way. Yeah. Yes.
Do you set yourself a word limit per day, or how do you?
Yeah, I did when I was at that creative writing centre, and by the end of it wasn't a full week. It was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So it was 4 solid days, and I was so thrilled that I did 20,000 words, which is amazing, and now I think, how did I actually do that?
What,
very much first
how
draft.
many words is in your
right,
book?
so this, so a novel will be, because when I started out, I said to my agent, how long is it? I said, well, the absolute minimum would be about 60,000 words. This is about 85,000 before the edit, and maybe 2,000 or so go. So this is about 82-ish thousand words. The huge, mighty tomes that we go, oh my goodness, can I actually read that? Would probably be well over 100, 100, 110 or so. So, but general day-to-day, I would love to do even 1,000 a day. But that's so much first draft. You hear about the first draft, the second draft, and it's very difficult doing that, because, of course, you've got to kind of go away from it. They always say, and leave it for a couple of weeks, which you have to, and then you go back, and some people even change the font size. So you think, oh, I haven't written this, it's somebody else. Oh, no, it's me. Sort of try and fool you that you haven't done it, but you have, really. And then, of course,
I'm assuming there's a lot more editing takes place with a novel than with a cookery book. A cookery book,
what if they went down and said, yeah, we don't want any of the butter in these recipes, that's just ridiculous. That wouldn't work, or sugar, whatever, So they can't do it so much with cookery books. But they certainly do with that. And, you know, you have a lovely editor to work with, it's fantastic. But certainly for the first novel, she said, right, I need us to edit, lose 5,000 words. I went, what? You know, it's like, that's like 3 months' work or whatever, you know, in a normal day-to-day. But so it's always compromise. And with the publishers, it's always compromise. About the title, about the cover, always compromise. Yeah. Yes, the lady with the grey jumper, yes.
So I'm going back to the food.
Yes, yes.
Comment on the question. I'm really sorry that Cook's Food of Scotland is out of print.
I know, so am I.
It's a brilliant book.
Thank you.
Brora jam is the only way to make raspberry.
Isn't that fantastic? That was a lovely lady in Brora who told me how to make that. And she also told me how to make proper macaroons with the potatoes. I don't mean like macarons, those ridiculous little French things. Don't like those at all. Proper macaroons, you know, the thick white covered in the chocolate. And we got the tatties and we did the mashing of the tatties. And my husband wasn't with me on that trip up to Brora. And I remember afterwards I was making it. And he went, sorry, have I just seen you mix icing sugar into mashed potato? I went, yep. He said, only you Scots would think of doing that. You know. But thank you, it is delicious.
The other thing I wondered is, has your style of cooking changed? And if so, what sort of cooking are you into?
Yeah, well, it was interesting with Claire saying about, you know, her mum's books. And I mean, I used to look at those books and it was very much more aspirational, as I was saying. Now, everything is easy. It's like we only use the dining room, I suppose, you know, Christmas and Easter and the big things. We're all eating in kitchens nowadays. And it's all, my husband said the other day, do we ever use the silver cutlery? No. Because we can't put the dishwasher.
My silver cutlery comes out.
You know, it's very much more relaxed, informal, and come round for a plate of pasta. You know, is much more. So I think I've definitely become for main cooking. For baking, I think I'm the same, because baking you still have to kind of follow a recipe. Even if it's just even if I follow one of my recipes, you have to be more to the letter with baking.
We have a question on Facebook. I'm so happy.
Oh yeah, of course, we were waiting for that. Is it Mary Berry?
Is it my mum?
Somebody who's watching is loving the interview online. He would like to know, what would Sue's top tips be for a first-time writer to secure an agent or publisher?
Is this for fiction, do we think?
I'm thinking fiction.
Yes, yes. Well, they always say that you have to, if you've done a novel, you have to have the first, I think it's something like 38 pages, or, I mean, if you Google it, they find out, which have got to be amazing and to really reel you in. In a way, the entire first chapter has got to be amazing. I mean, this first chapter is quite striking. My next novel, it isn't quite as much, but I suppose, you know, I'm okay with that because I know I get a publisher. So you've got to reel them in quite quickly, because that agent may have another 199 to read or submissions that are in. So you've got to reel them in as quickly as possible and do your homework. Basically, you've got to know which sort of agents like which sort of fiction. Some of them like literary fiction, some of them like chick lit, some of them like children's fiction or whatever. So, you know, this can all be found online, you know, which sort of agent. Publisher-wise, you can go straight to a publisher, but often they'll say, have you got an agent? So try to get an agent first. If not, of course, you can go on a publisher's website and just find out about submissions. Because if you send something in and they're not looking for that genre, then you've just wasted your time and the postage and all the rest of it. So just really do all your research first. And if you're just starting out in writing, go on some of these courses I've talked about. Moniac Moore, the Creative Writing Centre is brilliant. You know, local colleges. I mean, I went to Edinburgh University one, wherever you're near, or you can do them online again. Some people do reader writers groups. I didn't want to do that, but a lot of people absolutely swear by that. So, you know, they're all sharing their writing online and commenting on it. So that's really useful, because it's got to be at a stage that it's not perfect, but really, really almost publishable before you approach an agent or publisher. It's got to be as best as you possibly can make it. Is that answered?
Well, hopefully they'll reply.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah.
Any other burning questions?
Yes.
It's a little Masterchef question.
Yes.
You've cooked your 3-course meal, and then the buzzer goes, time to take it up to the judges. By the time the judges taste everything, is the last people's actually cold?
Yes, yes. And congealed sauces and ice cream melting. Yes.
Especially if there's like 6.
That's right. I mean, the cameras always come in immediately and very quickly take,
Yeah.
all
and then,
the
because you
food.
used to bring, because it was the circular.
Yes, do you remember the
Because you
colours?
didn't even have a proper bench to cook at, did you?
No, we had a wee kitchen and then you had to take it to your table. Yeah.
But somebody came, did somebody come and do the washing up and things?
Yes.
That's the same in Bake Off. I'm always like, somebody must be.
Yes.
That's what I need. I need somebody to come and do the washing up.
It's a disadvantage if you're up last. If you're up last and
yes, but they always used to change it round. You know, each round they say, she was up first last time. So
I've always wondered that.
yes, yes, and things don't taste nice when they're tepid. But you've just got to. I mean, I've judged a lot of competition myself as well, and you just have to use your imagination in a way, thinking, I'm sure that would be lovely hot, but it's a bit weird. Yeah. Thank you. Anybody else?
I was just going to ask if you passed on your love of cooking to anybody in the family. Is everybody following?
Well, I mean, before my 3 kids all went to university, I did you'd think they'd have, through osmosis, sort of, garnered the gene of how to cook, but not really. So I sort of taught them, and I put, A4 paper in a file. And now my son, eldest, loves cooking. My next one, my daughter, she loves cooking as well, but she's the one that doesn't like fish. My youngest daughter, no, really not at all. She now lives in New York, and my middle daughter and my granddaughter, and I went to see her, baby that is, and she had like 2 mugs, and we opened the fridge and there was a tub of hummus. We came all the way from Edinburgh to see her in New York, and she went, oh yeah, I thought we'd just go out and eat, Goodness me, so sadly she loves food, she'll eat it, but that gene has definitely bypassed her, sadly.